I'm the reason you're not having a coffee break, and I'm the one keeping you from beer at the end of the tour. So uh, right now, this is I'll talk about a USDA ARS funded project, got funded last year. It's about developing a comprehensive understanding of all the environmental and social benefits of mass timber and mass timber industry, especially in the Pacific Northwest. But the reason it's a preliminary result that I'm going to present right now, because we are having a hard time recruiting students and postdocs for this project. So if you know of somebody who would be a good fit, please let us know. But I am at a stint where all my postdocs are leaving me for plush jobs, and all the students are graduating and getting other plush jobs. So the reason behind this project was, and Judith has touched upon it a bit as well, is we look at it from a triple bottom line perspective. From when we talk about sustainability, it's environmental, social, and economic. So looking at planet, people, and profit, right? But if you go look into the viewpoints and narrative that's out in the literature, there are essentially conflicting views, and both are based on some kind of analysis. One says mass timber is one paints a very rosy picture about mass timber. It can save the world. It's carbon sequestration. There's a lot of benefits. And the other side of the industry comes up with their own narrative as well. And what is missing out there is a deep dive into these narratives and weeding out what the assumption trail was, how these studies were conducted, and what kind of results, or what the sensitivity of those studies, and what kind of results would they change or not change depending on if you change some parameters or variables within it. So that's where the issue is. There are competing industries create their own LCA or life cycle analysis. They are written with variability and unreliability, and essentially it ridicules the environmental benefits of mass timber in general. I'm not assuming mass timber is the answer to everything right now, but I think we need to have a very fine-grained analysis of the entire situation to come up with the answer. For example, and Judith did present some results from that study, David's MS thesis, he had some different results when he was presenting for the first time. And when we made a deep dive into his assumption trail, a lot of things panned out, and then the results were what was presented earlier today. So our key motivation was to clarify that the variability in LCA finding should not be conflated with unreliability. We wanted to come up with a comprehensive analysis. For that, the project has two different objectives. One was a finer grain understanding of all the CLT or most of the CLT narratives out there, and how it performs vis-a-vis, how mass timber performs vis-a-vis buildings made with concrete and steel or other conventional material. And another objective of the study, which I did not build a premise for, was looking at the social dimension of mass timber industry in Oregon, looking at job creation. Social LCA is kind of a fledgling field, and it needs key indicators. And how does those indicators fit into the template of Oregon and the Pacific Northwest mass timber industry? And we would do some case studies to that, but that probably I'll present next year. But this year, we are talking about the first objective. So the method that we used was essentially a systematic literature review followed by a meta-analysis of the data that we curated from those studies and our own in-house LCAs. So problem formulation, literature search, which is still going on and taking a long time. Then we identify those eligible studies that we want to include in our systematic literature review, extract the data from there, build our own LCA models with those data, and run those analyses and crunch those numbers to kind of report, do a sensitivity analysis after that, and report and disseminate the information. So right now, preliminary research has been conducted. There's a postdoc that is working with us. She is with us for another couple of months, and after that, again, she's leaving for another job. But she's working, and she has done a preliminary research, looked at just the landscape out there using a couple of different databases, Google Scholar, Elsevier, ScienceDirect, and so on. And then, since we are doing a systematic literature review, we have to have a system in place. Our system has to come up with some definitions of what to include and what not to include. And so we have gone through that criteria. We're including the terms mass timber, engineered wood products, LVL, CLT, and what are we excluding? We have a list of that as well. And then you search the literature using Google Scholar is our first go-to, and then going through Elsevier and ScienceDirect as our as a secondary databases. So we have identified 698 studies, and we are going through a manual search of that, or we have done a manual search of that. And we are looking at, now we are trying to curate what are those key points that we need to take and do an analysis from, kind of curate the data, which is still ongoing. And out of those, the selected articles are roughly around 73, but articles are being added as they're popping up in the databases as well. So again, content analysis has been going on, and we will follow it up with meta-analysis after that. And eventually we'll create a report that's just for the systematic literature review part of the project, and the meta-analysis would follow after the report has been completed. The other part of the project, as I said, will assess the social benefits of mass timber industry, and hence broaden the conversation about relevance, importance, and the desirability of mass timber products within the AEC sector, as well as the bio-based circular economy. So again, the key parameters or the key indicators of social benefits are different than environmental benefits. And so we are having kind of an internal debate within our team to what to include and how to conduct those interviews and surveys with our mass timber producers in the region. And that would be our essential instruments for our data collection would be surveys, interviews, observation, examination of records vis-a-vis the policies that are around. And again, I'll have more to present on that probably next year. With that, I would like to acknowledge my co-conspirator, Rajat Panwar, who is a professor in Forest Ecosystems and Society within the College of Forestry. We have support from a lot of different organizations, as well as the financial support from USDA ARS. Now, before I finish, Ian did ask me to talk about some work for the Build Back Better EDA grant that we have been doing. Judith mentioned there are some needs for more optimized panel designs and panel products that could be used for modular housing and other rapid deployment building systems. So we are working with several different companies under a myriad of NDAs. So I would be very generic here as to what we are trying to do. But essentially, as Judith mentioned, 3-inch panel is not in the code, but you need a thinner panel to do the kind of work that Judith has been doing. So we are working with different manufacturers to kind of optimize, to pack in more properties within thinner panels and see if they could still meet the code, do some code compliance studies, code certification studies with APA and other certification agencies. Apart from that, we are also looking at connection systems for these different panels that we are developing. So how these panels are faring up with conventional code compliant connections or come up with new connection systems as such. So again, that we are in a seismic zone. There's a lot of talk about seismic performance of these connection and panels within when we talk to builders and code agencies. So we are doing a lot of work in that regard, using the support from the EDA Build Back Better grant that for the prototype testing part of funding that Ian has generously lent us some access to. With that, I will throw the floor open for questions. Yes, sir.
Is there any way the mass timber panels could actually be fabricated with a hollow core, where you could keep the thickness, but just have hollow cores within the panel themselves?
Sure, that's a great idea, and I don't see a reason why not, if it matches up with property. The question is there a way that mass timber panels can made with hollow core and they still retain the property uh, that we are looking for? The answer is yes and no.
Right.
There are,
Okay.
and also they might be equivalent in some properties, but they will be compromised on other properties.
Mhm. Well, I've done a little research and I know you're probably familiar with fire resistant paints. That could be, panels could be just submerged into a fire resistant paint, which would really slow it down, you know, any kind of, bring it to a class A rating. So it could be something with a hollow core that, plus you could run, you know, different, different electrical plumbing, maybe through the hollow core and get more, you know, structural value out of it. I just didn't know if they could fabricate, you know, if they're just set up to run like plywood and it's all sheet after sheet, or they can actually design them to be that way.
Yeah, anything to optimize the panel properties or optimize the geometric layout is on the table.
Okay.
As I said, there are certain trade-offs. If you're making hollow core and your top and end panels, end layers are very thin, then you compromise the connection properties and how the screws and nails are getting the purchase out of the wood. So there are several issues that need to be considered. But yeah, that's a good idea, and
Okay.
there are,
All right.
it should be on the table.
All right. Appreciate it.
Well, if not, thank you very much. And thank you also to Parker for running the show so immaculately.